The room was completely silent. Not the kind of silence you feel in an empty space, but the kind that carries weight, pressure, finality. A silence that tells you something important is about to end. At the center of the table sat a billionaire CEO. His posture was straight, but his shoulders carried years of exhaustion. In his hand, a pen. In front of him, a document that would erase everything he had ever built. Years of effort. Endless nights. Sacrifices no one ever truly understood. All of it reduced to a single moment. A single signature. He slowly exhaled, his fingers tightening slightly around the pen, and began to lower it toward the paper. But just before the tip touched the surface, a voice, quiet and uncertain, came from behind him. "Sir, I think you missed a number." And just like that, time stopped. For a moment, no one moved. The CEO's hand froze midair. The room, which had been drowning in quiet tension, shifted into something else entirely. Confusion. Annoyance. Disbelief. Because the voice hadn't come from a board member or a financial expert. It came from someone no one had even noticed. To understand that moment, you have to understand everything that led up to it. Because this wasn't just a company on the edge of bankruptcy. This was a life collapsing. Years earlier, the CEO had nothing. No investors. No connections. No safety net. Just an idea and an unreasonable belief that it could work. He worked out of a cramped garage, using secondhand equipment, and borrowed money he wasn't even sure he could repay. People laughed. Not openly, but enough for him to feel it. Banks rejected him more times than he could count. Even friends, the ones who said they supported him, kept their distance when things got difficult. But he didn't stop. He couldn't. Because when you build something from nothing, quitting doesn't feel like an option. Slowly, painfully, things began to change. One small success, then another. A client who believed in him. A deal that finally worked. Momentum started building. Years passed, and that small garage operation turned into a growing company. Then a successful company. Then something much bigger. Offices in different cities. Hundreds of employees. Revenue climbing higher every year. He had built something real. Something strong. Something that people depended on. But success has a way of making people forget how fragile things really are. Because the fall never announces itself. It started quietly. A project that didn't go as planned. A deal that looked perfect, until it suddenly wasn't. Market conditions shifted. Competitors adapted faster. And small problems began turning into bigger ones. At first, the CEO believed it was temporary. A rough phase. Something he could fix like he always had. But this time it was different. Losses began to stack up. Not slowly, but aggressively. Millions disappearing faster than anyone expected. Investors started asking questions. Then they started pulling back. One by one, they distanced themselves from the company. Phone calls became shorter. Emails became colder. Meetings ended without solutions. And for the first time, the CEO began to realize this wasn't just a setback. This was a collapse. He stopped sleeping properly. Even when he closed his eyes, his mind kept running numbers. Replaying decisions. Looking for the moment where things went wrong. At home, things changed too. He was there physically, but not really present. His children noticed. They stopped asking him to play. His wife noticed the silence, but didn't know how to break it. Every night, he sat alone, staring at reports that all said the same thing. There was no way out. And eventually, he accepted it, which is how he ended up in that room. On that day, at that table, with that pen in his hand. The final meeting had been carefully arranged. Lawyers were present. Board members sat in silence. No one spoke more than necessary, because there was nothing left to discuss. Everything had already been decided. The documents in front of him were clear. Bankruptcy filing. Legal closure. The end. In the corner of that room stood a man no one paid attention to. A janitor. His uniform was simple, slightly worn. His hands showed years of physical work. The kind of work people overlook, but depend on every day. He was a single father, raising his children alone, working long hours, sometimes 2 shifts, just to make sure they had enough. Every night, after work, he would go home, help his kids with their homework, sit beside them, even when he was exhausted, because he wanted them to have a better future than he did. He wasn't part of the meeting. He wasn't even supposed to be noticed. But sometimes, the most important people are the ones no one sees. The CEO adjusted his grip on the pen. The lawyer leaned slightly forward. Whenever you're ready. That was the moment. The final point of no return. And then that voice. Soft. Careful. Almost afraid to exist in that room. Sir, I think you missed a number. At first, no one reacted. Then irritation spread across the table. One executive turned sharply. This is not your place. But the CEO didn't move. There was something about the tone of that voice. It wasn't arrogance. It wasn't interruption. It was observation. He slowly looked up. Say that again. The janitor hesitated, then stepped forward. Each step uncertain, as if he wasn't sure he was allowed to take it. He reached the table and pointed at one of the financial sheets. Sir, this number doesn't match the total. A few people shook their heads. Dismissive. Uninterested. But the CEO, after everything he had been through, had nothing left to lose. Check it, he said quietly. The analysts looked at each other, then began reviewing the numbers again. Seconds passed. Then a minute. Then another. At first nothing. Then something shifted. A frown. A second look. A recalculation. And suddenly, the energy in the room changed. Whispers started. Papers moved faster. Numbers were checked again and again. Until finally, someone said it. There's an error. A decimal point. One small, nearly invisible detail. But that detail had changed everything. What they believed was a massive loss was actually a miscalculation. Millions misreported. The company wasn't finished. It had never been finished. It had just been misunderstood. The CEO slowly leaned back in his chair, his eyes fixed on the document in front of him. He had been seconds away from ending everything, because of one number. After a long pause, he turned his head toward the janitor. A man no one had respected. No one had listened to. Why did you say something? The janitor gave a small, humble smile. Because no one else was looking closely. Silence filled the room again. But this time, it carried something else. Respect. Realization. The bankruptcy process was stopped immediately. Plans changed. Decisions reversed. The company didn't recover overnight. But now, it had a chance. And sometimes a chance is all you need. As for the janitor, his life changed too. He was no longer invisible. The CEO made sure of that. He helped support his children's education. Gave him new opportunities. A better future. But the most important part of this story isn't about business. It isn't about money. It's about something far more powerful. Never underestimate someone just because the world chooses to ignore them. Because sometimes the quietest voice in the room is the one that sees what everyone else missed.